Hey guys, as we wind down tonight, we step quietly into a world of muddy festivals. Wandering gestures and laughter that sound suspiciously like someone choking on a turnip. Medieval fun wasn't polished, safe, or even particularly wise, but it existed. Often in loud, smelly, and thoroughly inconvenient ways. Right now, picture a village square, half mud, half ambition, filled with villagers cheering as someone tries to wrestle a greased pig. A man in bells shouts jokes only he understands. Someone's playing music on a bladder. No one knows the rules of the game, and that's somehow the entire point. You might think fun is universal. Not quite. In the Middle Ages, fun was a loose concept. A temporary distraction from frostbite, famine, and your neighbor's goat sleeping in your bed again. Some activities might strike you as charming. Others might make you deeply uncomfortable. But all of them reflect a time when joy was hard-earned, oddly shaped, and not always voluntary. You might not survive this one, but at least you'll leave entertained. So before you settle in, feel free to give the video a like and hit subscribe if you're truly enjoying the journey. You can also leave a comment. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. It's always a small wonder to see people tuning in from so many corners of the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that gentle hum in the background, and together, let's ease into tonight's story. Fun for you might mean popcorn and a screen. For them, it meant pickled fish, mud wrestling, or watching a bear fight a man in a hat. Medieval Europe had its fair share of miseries: the plagues, the wars, the bread that doubled as both meal and weapon. But within the misery lived a stubborn joy, often wrapped in straw, ale, and suspiciously violent games. This story isn't about knights or queens. It's about ordinary people chasing fun in all the wrong places. Because when life offers little comfort, you make your own. You invent it. You smear it in grease, light it on fire, and call it a festival. Across these next few hours, we walk through the hidden world of medieval amusement. From the foolish pranks of peasants to the darkly decadent diversions of the elite. You'll chase pigs, dodge jests, survive a dance that never ends, and watch the upper class compete to see who can wear the most velvet without collapsing. It won't always make sense. It's not supposed to. Because in the Middle Ages, fun wasn't fun in the modern sense. It was louder, smellier, riskier, and strangely more human. Let's begin. You're not sure what day it is, exactly. Time bends around the seasons, the sowing, the fasting, and whatever minor saint is being reluctantly celebrated today. But this morning, something feels different. There's shouting in the square, the kind with more cheer than anger. Though in this village, those two often sound the same. It's fair day. Not a proper noble fair with silks and imported citrus. No, this is the village version. There's no money. It's just mud, mead, and a pig with butter on its back. You're told there will be games. And because your idea of game includes sitting still and not being cold, this immediately feels like a trap. But you follow the crowd anyway, drawn by habit and boredom, and the vague promise that maybe someone brought honey cakes. They didn't. Of course they didn't. The first event is the pig chase. The rules are unclear, mainly because there are no rules. A piglet, terrified, greased, and deeply confused, is released into the square. 30 grown men and boys run after it, sliding, shouting, and occasionally colliding like sack-clothed meteors. You're not sure who wins. It's possibly the pig. You're invited to join. You hesitate. They insist. Suddenly, you're in the mud with everyone else, chasing an animal that seems to understand the chaos better than the humans. It moves like a bar of soap, possessed by a forest spirit. You lunge, you fall, you taste dirt that might also be manure. The pig vanishes behind a cart. Someone cheers, someone cries. Possibly you. Your tunic is ruined. Your dignity is optional. Next, there's a contest involving sticks and shins. It begins politely enough. The men take turns kicking each other in the leg. Hard. This continues until one of them falls down or cries uncle in a language only the village healer seems to understand. The loser is given a turnip. The winner also gets a turnip. No one knows why. You clap anyway. Then comes the leaping game, the log jump. A long round beam is set on 2 barrels. Each participant takes a running leap, attempting to land on the log and balance. Most fail, spectacularly. One man flips so impressively that a child thinks he's flying and begins to weep. The crowd laughs. The man gets up. Somehow he's proud. You are volunteered. Again, you take a running start. You leap. For a moment, one glorious, foolish moment, you are airborne. Then you land. Poorly, your ankle turns with the grace of a drunk goat. You fall. The crowd erupts. You just become part of the fun, whether you like it or not. Someone gives you a radish as consolation. You try to eat it. It tastes like disappointment and dirt. You eat it anyway. There's music now. A man with a lute missing 3 strings plays something that might be a tune or might be a warning. Another person beats on a drum made from goatskin in vague confidence. Children dance. Old women yell. A dog howls in solidarity. The air smells like ale, roasted onions, and unspoken regrets. Your clothes cling to your body with the loyalty of wet laundry on a windy day. Someone dumps a bucket of water on the ground to keep the dust down. It becomes mud. You are standing in it. Then come the riddles, not gentle brainsers. These are questions designed to confuse and humiliate. A local fool stands on a barrel and asks, "What has no legs but walks, no mouth but speaks, and smells worse than your cousin's feet?" The answer is smoke, or possibly your cousin. No one's sure. You shout out goose, and are immediately pelted with pebbles. Lightly, lovingly. The village's way of saying, "Thank you for participating." Eventually the contest of who can yell loudest begins. It is exactly what it sounds like. It's grown men, young women, even the blacksmith's apprentice. They take turns screaming into the void. It's therapeutic, cathartic, and possibly just a way to scare birds off the wheat fields. You don't win. Your voice cracks halfway through a scream. Child beats you with a war cry that echoes off the church walls. The priest pretends not to notice. Throughout it all, there is laughter. Not the elegant, echoing kind that dances across banquet halls. This is the raw, wheezing kind. Bent over, tear-streaked, clutching your sides kind. It's the kind that comes when you haven't had a proper meal in days, but someone slipped on pig grease and fell into a puddle. I don't compare. I sent for. I was not physical. You're still freezing, but communal. Everyone's in on the joke. Everyone smells bad. Everyone's bruised, scratched, and slightly humiliated. It's the closest thing to happiness this village allows. By sundown, your legs ache, your ribs hurt from laughing, or maybe from the stick game, hard to say. The pig has escaped, turnips are gone, as the music has devolved into one man whistling and another hitting a pot with a spoon. You trudge home, mud-caked, empty-stomached, slightly limping, but lighter somehow. Because for one day, you weren't just surviving, you're ridiculous. And in the Middle Ages, ridiculousness is its own kind of relief. Today it's raining. Again, the sky drips like a broken nose. And every corner of the village smells like a wet thatch roof, trying not to collapse. You've already slipped twice, once in a puddle, and once in something you refuse to identify. You are damp, defeated, and deeply in need of distraction. Which is fortunate, because the fool is back. Not the local drunk who occasionally lectures the sheep. This is the real one. The jester, the licensed lunatic, the only person in the village allowed to say what everyone else is thinking. While dressed like a moth with confidence issues, you hear him before you see him. A tin bell jingles. A high-pitched voice croaks out something about the Riva's nose and the priest's secret stash of mead. The crowd chuckles, nervously. Because even laughter, in this place, has consequences. He arrives in a burst of mud, ribbons, and opinions. His hat is a crime against tailoring. His shoes curl upward like they're trying to escape his feet. He carries a stick with a fake face on the end. A puppet, a twin, a decoy for blame. His clothes are patched in all the wrong places and torn in all the right ones. He looks like a walking disagreement. And yet, he commands attention. The children adore him. He hands out pebbles, pretending they're relics, whispers that goats are secretly spies, and challenges them to outbelch the town bailiff. They try. The bailiff loses. Spectacularly. The adults are more cautious. They smile, but only with half their faces, because fools in the Middle Ages are not merely entertainers. They are mirrors. Ugly ones. The kind that reflect your worst thoughts back at you with a grin and a dance. You think he's just silly till he begins to speak? He tells a story. It starts with a rooster, ends with a bishop, and somehow blames the weather. It's nonsense. It's perfect. In between the jokes are barbed sharp truths hidden under layers of absurdity. About the taxes. About the Lord's new mistress. About the miller who suddenly owns a second cloak. You laugh. Shouldn't. But you do. He dances next. Not with grace. Not with rhythm. But with fury, disguised as joy. His feet slap the mud with abandon. Spins, trips, bows, and somehow makes it look deliberate. You clap, almost out of reflex. He bows so low his hat falls off. There's a turnip underneath. No one asks why. This is part of the act. Then comes the insults. A game, he says. What? A contest of wits. He points to the cobbler and shouts, "This man's shoes are so thin, even honesty couldn't walk in them." The cobbler laughs, uneasily. He points at you. You freeze. This one thinks too highly of himself, and yet not enough to wash. The crowd erupts. You redden, you bow. He winks. You've passed the test. The fool never stays long. He moves from village to village, fair to fair, insult to insult. Some say he used to be a noble, lost his mind after falling in love with a goose. Others say he's protected by the king, sent to spy on the common folk through the art of mockery. Still others claim he's just very bad at every other profession. You watch him go? He leaves with a skip and a song, trailing laughter like a man dragging a kite through mud. That night, as you peel off your wet tunic and shiver beside a hearth that coughs more smoke than warmth, you think about what he said. Not the bit about your smell, it's the other things. The ones that weren't funny, but were disguised as such. You wonder how much truth can be hidden inside a joke, how much pain can be wrapped in a jingle bell. Being a fool in the Middle Ages isn't safe. You're walking a tightrope, one made of twine, frayed by politics, stretched across a pit full of lords with bad tempers. You say too little, and you're boring. Say too much, and you're buried. But for one muddy afternoon, he made the village laugh. He made you forget your blisters, your debts, and the rat that's been living under your bed, and possibly plotting something. And that in a world where fun is rationed like salt, is enough to make him the most dangerous man alive, or at least the most necessary. You wake to the sound of footsteps. Many of them, not marching, not chasing, not even quite walking. They're lighter, faster, staggered, irregular. As if joy and exhaustion are trying to use the same legs. You step outside, blinking into the pale morning. The square's full. People are dancing, not just 2 or 3. Dozens. Faces flushed, arms flailing, feet stamping in the dirt like they're fighting the ground and trying to lose. There's no music, no band. Just the slap of soles against mud and the occasional gasp when someone collapses, only to be lifted and pushed back into motion. You watch, confused. Then someone grabs your hand. You're pulled into the fray. The woman next to you is laughing, but her eyes say something else, something urgent. The man on your other side is covered in sweat and shaking, but he won't stop. He can't stop. No one can. This isn't a festival. It's something else. They call it the dancing plague. You call it deeply suspicious. No one knows how it started. A woman, barefoot, babbling, bright with fever, began to dance last week. She danced all night, and the next day, and the next. People laughed, then joined, then didn't stop. Now the entire village square has become a tangle of limbs, dust, and involuntary movement. You try to leave. Can't. Not because anyone's holding you, but because the rhythm, or the madness, or something in between, has found your feet. Hours pass, or maybe days. Time becomes a damp blur. You sweat, you ache, your knees feel like furniture that's been sat on too many winters in a row. Your vision swims. Someone nearby is crying while grinning. Another has fainted, only to wake and begin again. You try to speak, but your voice is drowned out by panting and footfalls. The town priest arrives with a bell and a book, shouts about demons. Someone throws cabbage at him and hits a chicken. Chicken starts dancing. The priest flees. You want to stop. You do. But the crowd is moving like one enormous chaotic creature, and you are merely a misplaced limb. Eventually, mercifully, your legs give out. You fall. The earth is cold, comforting. It doesn't ask you to sway. You lie there gasping, the dirt pressing into your cheek like a pillow with opinions. Someone else stumbles next to you. They do not get up. He wears robes that smell like old vinegar and smugness. He pokes at the dancers with a stick. He declares it a crisis of humors. Too much heat or bile or laughter trapped in the blood. He prescribes fasting, flagellation, or possibly bathing. No one listens. The town elders suggest music. Real music. Maybe if they provide a band, it'll end on its own. This is medieval logic. Fight fire with slightly more organized fire. They bring drums, flutes, a fiddler with one string, and infinite optimism. The music begins. The dancing intensifies. The fool from yesterday returns. He does not join. He watches. His jingle bells remain still. At night, the fires are lit. Some dance in the glow. Others dance in the shadows. The moon looks down with a kind of embarrassed pity. The stars pretend not to see. You lie awake, legs twitching even now, wondering what it means. A sickness, a miracle, a rebellion of bodies, tired of stillness. Or maybe it's just the logical result of too many turnips and not enough joy. You ask the baker. He shrugs. Better this than leeches, he says, then throws bread crusts at a drummer. You nod. You understand. Eventually, the dancing stops. Not all at once, but slowly, like a fire running out of wood. Some collapse and never rise. Others simply forget how to move. Their muscles rebel. Their minds go foggy. You walk again, but with the careful steps of someone unsure whether they're still dreaming. In the days that follow, the square is quiet. Mud churned into paste. A few lost shoes. Flute cracked in half. No one speaks of it. But everyone remembers. And now, every time you hear footsteps, quick ones, offbeat, a small part of you flinches. 'Cause fun, in the Middle Ages, has a strange way of turning into something else entirely. You wake up this morning with sore legs, half a turnip in your pocket, and no memory of how it got there. Your mouth tastes like last night's laughter, slightly sour, strangely metallic, and vaguely suspicious. It's festival day again. Which festival? No one seems sure. It might be St. Apollonia's, or the Festival of St. Mildred's Elbow. Or possibly just an excuse to get drunk before the barley ferments into something regretful. You arrive in the square. Again, mud still reigns as sovereign. The smell of boiled cabbage drifts through the air like a gentle warning. Someone's hung up a banner, or what passes for one. It's a stained bedsheet with "Let Joy Happen Here" scrawled in charcoal, hopeful and inaccurate. The first event is new. It's called a leech race. Yes, leeches. Small, slimy, confused creatures with no discernible goals in life beyond sipping and squirming. Someone has lovingly placed them in rows on a plank of wood, each with a different color dabbed on its back. The goal? Place bets on which one reaches the end of the board first. Stakes a loaf of barley bread in minor village fame. You stare. You blink. You pick the green one. It does not move. You wait. Others cheer. You begin to question your life choices. Eventually, a red-dabbed leech inches forward. The crowd erupts like it's just invented fire. Someone faints, possibly from joy, possibly from standing too close to the cabbage cart. Your leech never moves. It's declared spiritually stubborn and given a small piece of moss as consolation. You pretend not to be hurt. Next up, bear baiting. And no, it's not a metaphor. They've brought in a real bear, not a majestic, regal bear. One looks like it's been tricked into showing up. It's chained to a post and clearly questioning the trajectory of its career. A man with a stick, probably named Jeff, approaches, pokes it, and runs away. The crowd cheers. The bear swipes at the air half-heartedly. This continues for longer than it should. You're told it's tradition, that this is noble sport, that the bear was born for this. You look at the bear. The bear looks at you. Neither of you believe this. Eventually, Jeff is caught on the back of his trousers and flung into a puddle. The audience applauds. The bear is given a turn-up and led away. No one mentions the deeper ethical dilemma. You all quietly agree not to think about it. Now comes the festival of slightly bad ideas. Not its real name, but what everyone calls it. A tradition born from boredom and ale passed down through generations of people who genuinely thought, what if we just tried something stupid and saw what happened? The games begin. First, the sack hand spoon run. You're placed in a burlap sack, handed a spoon with a raw egg, and told to race in a circle. There are no prizes. It's just the possibility of minor injury and eternal mockery. You fall. Twice. The egg survives longer than your pride. Then, the backwards cheese roll. A wheel of dubious cheese is rolled down a small hill. You must chase it, but only while running backwards. The hill is mostly rocks, sheep droppings, and regret. You chase, you fall again, the cheese escapes. It is declared blessed and now belongs to the village priest. You do not question this. You still have gravel in your elbow. Later, a man attempts to juggle hot coals. He succeeds for 3 seconds. Then he doesn't. The crowd roars. He bows with singed sleeves and a face of determined denial. After that, it's time for the whispering duel. 2 people stand nose to nose and take turns whispering insults until one breaks into laughter. The rules are sacred. Only whispers, no touching, and bonus points for creativity. You are volunteered. Again, your opponent is a pig farmer with a known vendetta against boots. He whispers, your breath smells like a damp prayer. You crack a smile. He adds, your face could curdle milk faster than thunder. You break. You rehanded a sprig of rosemary and asked to parade around the square as the mildly shamed. You accept with honor. As evening falls, the final contest arrives. The Cabbage Crown, awarded to the person who can compose the worst poem in praise of cabbage. Submissions include, O noble leaf, you rot with flair. Thy smell doth linger in my despair. O cabbage, thou art soft, yet cruel, like mother-in-law's advice. You win unexpectedly with, thou art the stomach's final test. Both boiled and raw, I love thee less a cheer. A toast. Someone throws pickled onions. You are crowned with a wilted cabbage and declared poet of the stomach, title you will never live down. You return home, bruised, cabbage-crowned, and faintly sticky with ale and something you hope is turnip juice. Your legs hurt. Your brain hurts. Your dignity is, once again, optional. And yet, you smiled today. Because in a world where days are long and life is short, sometimes the best medicine isn't wisdom or work or warmth. Sometimes it's watching a man whisper insults to a chicken and lose. The fire in the center of the square is sputtering like it's had too much ale, which, to be fair, it might have. Someone definitely poured their drink into it earlier as an offering, or an accident. Hard to tell in the dark. You're sitting on a crooked bench made from 2 barrels and a questionable plank. Your tunic sticks to your back with the determination of a damp regret. This is the final form of medieval fun, the drinking song. There are no instruments, unless you count a wooden flute that sounds like someone trying to charm a worm. The flautist insists it's authentic. You're inclined to believe him. No modern person would invent such a noise on purpose. The lyrics of the song make little sense. Something about a miller, a fish, and trousers that betrayed their owner. The rhyme scheme is ambitious. The logic is not. You try to sing along, you fail. You try again, still wrong. Someone hands you a mug, you drink. It doesn't help the tune, but it makes you care less. The mug is made of wood, smells like mold, and contains a liquid that tastes like rainwater filtered through ambition and slightly burnt apples. It's called cider. You're told it's the good batch. You worry about the bad one? As the song drags on, people begin to improvise. The miller is now a bishop. The fish is now a pig. Everyone laughs, not because it's clever, but because it doesn't matter. The point was never the song. It was the noise. There is a moment, brief, half lost, where someone begins a second song. It's slower, sadder. You don't recognize the words. Maybe no one does. But the tone shifts. It's about someone who didn't come back from the fields, or from wherever people go when life decides it's had enough of them. The crowd goes quiet, heads bow. The flute, for once, plays something soft. You feel it in your ribs. Then someone farts. The spell breaks. Laughter returns, like a dog who wandered off, but remembered dinner was soon. Someone starts clapping. Another song begins. Louder, worse, better. You join in, hoarse now, your voice blending with the others, like ingredients in a stew that no one bothered to stir. The ground is damp. Your feet are cold. Someone spilled cider down your leg. You're pretty sure your bench just shifted and is now slowly becoming a bench no longer. You are part of the noise. Eventually someone tries to dance. It's more of a shuffle. Others follow. Feet slap mud. Arms sway like uncertain wheat in the wind. A child spins. An old woman twirls and nearly knocks over the baker. The baker retaliates by singing in falsetto. The child screams with joy. The old woman pretends it was on purpose. You watch. You smile. Not about rats in the grain. Not about whether the next harvest will be enough, or if the priest will notice you skipped confession. Not even about the pig that wandered off 3 days ago and might now be a saint. They do. It sounds like two badgers arguing in a bucket. No one minds. You lie back, the stars blinking above like distant bored nobility. You wonder if they can hear the singing, if they'd understand it, if they'd join in. Probably not. Some wander home, arms slung around each other like poorly stacked firewood. Some stay staring into the fire, faces lit like half-remembered dreams. You remain, because the dirt is comfortable now, because your back has accepted its fate, because no one expects anything of you in this moment except to be. And in the Middle Ages, that is rare. You close your eyes. The mud doesn't care. The cold doesn't bite as hard. Your fingers twitch in time with the rhythm of the bad flute and worse lyrics. Someone mumbles something about turnips. You think you respond? You're not sure? Tomorrow will come. It always does. But tonight, you were ridiculous. You were alive. You sang about fish. For once, that was enough. You've met fools before. The local kind. Loud, muddy, slightly fermented. But this one is different. Sharper, slimmer, louder, somehow, even in silence. His name is Triboulet, and you've heard the rumors. Not the nice kind. It's an interesting kind. The kind whispered after dusk, with raised eyebrows and lowered voices. They say he was touched by madness, or by genius. Or perhaps by both, holding hands and laughing behind his back. Triboulet is the jester of kings. It's not the village idiot or some tavern sidekick, but a man in bells who dines at the edge of power. One slipper in the gutter, the other firmly planted on the royal carpet. You cannot tell if he's ascending or falling, only that he moves with purpose. He wears the usual fool's attire, mismatched fabric, too many colors, sleeves that drag like misplaced intentions. His cap jingles with every step. Bells, yes, but also warnings. You do not ignore a man whose wardrobe sounds like a threat. And his face, it's the kind that never fully rests, always in motion, smirking, squinting, listening harder than you'd like. His grin promises mischief and remembers your secrets. You haven't told him any yet. He walks like a man with nothing to lose, because in many ways, he doesn't. He is both weapon and target, the king's shadow and his shield. Triboulet is allowed to mock, insult, provoke, not because he is untouchable, but because he is disposable in the most deliberate way. You wonder, what kind of man lives with that bargain? Here's what they say. Triboulet was born twisted, not metaphorically. His spine curved like a question mark no one wanted to answer. In another world, he'd be hidden, pitied, discarded. But in this one, he became laughter itself. Pointed, unsettling, often mistaken for joy. He served not one, but two kings. Louis XII and Francis I, both powerful, both dangerous, both apparently willing to be insulted by a man in shoes shaped like fish. Most jesters, you imagine, are tolerated. Triboulet was necessary. He spoke truths too ugly for courtiers and too risky for servants. He said what others wouldn't, and somehow survived saying it. There's the story of the noblewoman, Triboulet, perhaps having drunk too much or thought too little, slapped her rear as she walked past. The court froze. The woman turned red. The king, barely breathing, demanded an explanation. Triboulet bowed low and said, "I thought it was the queen." The king laughed, or at least smiled in a way that suggested he'd allow breathing to continue. Later, the woman's husband demanded punishment. Triboulet was sentenced to death. The king, enjoying the spectacle, offered mercy. But with a catch, Triboulet could choose how he died. He paused. He bowed again. And with the calm of a man long familiar with danger, he said, "Let me die of old age." The king laughed again. The sentence was lifted. Triboulet lived. This is how it always went. Too far. Then further, and somehow forgiven. He danced on the razor's edge of court life, never quite falling, always bleeding, just enough to stay interesting. Try to imagine it, not just the danger, the exhaustion. Every word a test, every gesture calculated. You are supposed to be spontaneous, but never careless, funny but never foolish, loyal but never predictable. Triboulet didn't just survive this, he mastered it, used wit the way knights use swords, not to entertain, but to defend, to attack, to slice hypocrisy into pieces so thin they could be passed off as polite conversation. He was hated. He was feared. He was admired in the way fire is admired from across a room, mesmerizing, warming, and extremely dangerous when approached too casually. People said he was cruel, and he was, sometimes deliberately, sometimes because cruelty is what people hear when truth comes without a cushion. But he also made people laugh, not forced chuckles or careful smiles. Real laughter, the kind that reveals more than it hides. You can see it now, a feast. Gold plates, wine poured like it's trying to escape the bottle, and nobles pretending their seats don't reek of politics. Triboulet arrives, disheveled and grinning, already 3 sentences ahead of everyone in the room. He tells a joke. Half the court laughs. The other half suspects they are the punchline. They're right. He is loved by the king, but only as long as the king is laughing. He knows this. He always knows. And that more than the jokes, the stories, the fish-shaped shoes, is what makes him a legend. It's not just a man with words. A man who lived inside them, who built armor from absurdity, who wielded ridicule like a blade. Triboulet isn't just a jester. He's a mirror with fangs. And for a few glittering, dangerous years, he was the sharpest voice in France, hidden beneath a floppy hat. You've had thoughts before? Sharp ones? The kind that would slice the room in half, if spoken aloud. But you've kept them tucked behind your teeth, like dangerous treasures, 'cause here in this time, in this court, a badly timed truth can cost you your head. But Triboulet, he says them anyway. He says them, and they laugh. Imagine that, saying the unsayable, wrapped in rhyme, in dance. In a voice that jingles like warning bells on a badly trained mule. You wonder what gives him the right. It's not status. He's not noble. His lineage is not traced in parchment and power. His clothing is ridiculous. His body twisted. Jewels. She smirks and adjusts them. He calls the chancellor a man whose ideas are all sewn backward and whose wig sits on lies. And someone maybe you laughs too hard. Why? 'Cause it's relief. Triboulet speaks aloud what you whisper in empty corridors, what you mutter. When your back is turned, he packages truth and absurdity. He sets fire to pride, then dances around the flames. But he's allowed. Not because they like him, although they might, but because they need him. In a world stacked with ceremony, where words weigh more than gold and smiles are sharpened into weapons, someone has to open the window and let the stink out. That someone is the fool. It's a strange privilege, a dangerous one. If you said what? He said even gently, even accurately, you'd be in chains. The line between jest and heresy is measured in breath and bell tone. But Triboulet, he jingles. He lives. There's power. In that, a sideways slippery power. The kind that lets you speak to the king with mockery instead of flattery. The kind that gets you a seat at the feast, even when your elbows are on the table and your jokes are about the bishop's hygiene. Still, every joke is a gamble. Every laugh, a shield. The noble did not grin back. That juggler now works as a gravedigger, assuming you believe he's still working at all. But Triboulet gets away with it. Because he's not just mocking others, he's mocking himself. Constantly, his clothes are an apology, his posture, a distraction. He lowers himself so completely that no one sees the blade he's slipping between their ribs. It's a performance. All of it. The hunched shoulders, the grimaces, sudden somersaults, when silence threatens to get too honest. He controls the room not by commanding it, but by giving it permission to laugh, safely, briefly, guiltily. You try to imagine what that costs, to be the one who says what others dare not, but never in your own voice, to wrap every truth in. Foolishness, until even you're not sure what you meant anymore. To live in the space between respect and revulsion. Triboulet mocks the court, but he's also its servant. He entertains, yes.
Ow.
But more importantly, he tests the boundaries of power. Every day he checks where the edges are, which words bend and which break. He pushes not to rebel, but to measure for the king. Everyone, he's a weather vane of danger, spinning not in wind. Just once, a moment of risk that hung in the air. Like smoke from an unfinished fire, the king stared. The court froze. Even the pigeons on the roof paused mid-strut. Triboulet bowed. Deep, too deep. The bells on his hat brushed the floor. Then he said gently, "Forgive me, your majesty. My tongue outran my wit. It won't happen again." The king exhaled and smiled. It would happen again. Of course it would. But in that moment, you saw the truth. Triboulet wasn't fearless. He was terrified. But he'd learned to dance with fear until it looked like confidence. That, you realize, is the secret. You cannot insult a king unless you're more afraid of silence than of punishment, and Triboulet fears silence most of all. Asterisk. 1,000 words, there's a moment. Late in the evening feast, when the music softens, the courtiers fade into murmurs, and the jester's voice rings out again. Triboulet is back at it, perched on a stool with one leg shorter than the others. Wobbling like truth in a room full of liars, he's telling another joke. Something about a monk, a goose, and a misplaced confession. The laughter that follows is rich, indulgent, and slightly desperate. You laugh too, because it's expected, because it's safer than not. But you notice something. He doesn't laugh with you. Triboulet smiles, yes, grins constantly, but real laughter. That sound hasn't left his mouth all evening. His eyes don't match the joke. They're somewhere else. Somewhere quieter. You watch him finish the set. A bow, a twirl, the ridiculous little dance he always ends on, like a punctuation mark shaped like exhaustion. The nobles clap. Some throw coins. One tosses a wind-drenched napkin like a favor. He catches it, bows again, backs out of the room like someone who doesn't want to turn their back on anything. You follow. Discreetly. Down the corridor, behind the kitchen, through a crooked little doorway hidden behind a tapestry of a lion. Eating an allegory, you find him. He's sitting on a barrel, alone. The bells are off, his face is off. No grin, no twinkle. Just a man with tired hands and a bad back, staring into the space where no applause exists. You freeze, unsure if he's noticed you. Yes. You missed the best joke, he says, not looking up. The part where I pretend any of it matters. You say nothing. Words feel unwelcome here. He sighs. Of each other, of silence, of themselves. He pauses, scratches behind his ear, like thought itches. It's the game you want to ask why play it? But you don't, because you already know the answer. He doesn't have a choice. You think jesters are free? But the truth is, they're trapped in a costume made of survival. Triboulet isn't just performing at court. He is the performance. There's no intermission, no exits, only costume changes and carefully timed self-mockery. You've heard the rumors that he sleeps in a broom closet, not because he has to, but because he doesn't want space to think. That he writes poetry no one sees. Tells you a story softly, almost absently, about a feast long ago. A visiting noble accused him of treason after an especially pointed joke. Triboulet laughed. You ask what happened? Survived, he replies. Obviously, not telling the story from a ditch, but something in his voice suggests the ditch was closer than he lets on. He stands slowly. His spine clicks. His knees complain. The bells, still resting beside him, don't jingle. They wait. You know, he says, the worst part isn't the danger, it's the performance of joy. Every day I sell laughter I don't feel to people, who wouldn't know sincerity if it spilled wine on their shoes. He looks at you now properly, but I keep selling it. Possibly both. He picks up the bells, not with reverence, with resignation. His steps uneven, his back bowed, his hat tucked under one arm like a broken crown. The court will cheer again tomorrow. He'll tell the same joke. The jester's job isn't to feel, it's to make everyone else forget that they do. In the morning, the court feels different. To clean. As if the air has been politely reminded to behave. You sense it before you hear it. Something went wrong last night. Or maybe not wrong, just too far. Triboulet isn't at breakfast. Not perched on the windowsill. Not underneath the table, pretending to be a misplaced dog. Not balanced on the back of the Duke's chair, mimicking his posture. He is absent. And that, more than anything, is unsettling. You wait. Someone snorts at their soup. No response. A minor noble stumbles through a pun. It dies, unlawed. The silence tastes metallic. It's like a blade hidden in a custard tart. Finally, you ask, where is he? A shrug. A glance. A mutter. He said something. Of course he did. You piece it together. Last night, too much wine, too much courage, too many whispers, woven into wit. Triboulet made a joke. A sharp one. Too sharp. Target, the king's mistress, or perhaps the king himself. Or perhaps both, simultaneously, which is impressive, if not wise. No one repeats the joke. It's not because they can't remember it, but because repeating it might be mistaken for agreement. An agreement in this court is a felony of the face. Eventually, you hear the details. Not all at once, no. These things arrive in pieces. Like a broken goblet that everyone is pretending wasn't dropped. Triboulet said something about lineage, about legitimacy, about how royal blood doesn't always flow in a straight line, especially when it's been mixed with enough wine and personal favors. It's funny, brilliant even, but it's also treasonous. There are rules even for fools, especially for fools. You can mock the bishop's haircut. You can insult the duchess's poodles. You can even question the existence of the treasury, as long as you do it while balancing an eel on your head. But you do not question the king's pride, or his bed. Triboulet did both. Now the court buzzes in discomfort, like a beehive that suspects. One of its members has been replaced by a wasp, and the king, he's silent. Worse than angry, he's considering. You hear whispers that Triboulet has been imprisoned, that he's been banished, that he's been sent to write apology poetry. In a tower, that he's been executed and replaced with a quieter version, perhaps one who juggles silently and thinks less. But then, he returns, not triumphantly, not shamefully either. He simply appears. Late in the day, standing in the corner of the hall, bells dull, face still, the room hushes. He walks forward, stops, bows low, then says, in a voice too dry to be anything, but parched, my apologies. I momentarily mistook honesty for humor. The king blinks. The courtiers hold their breath. Someone in the back quietly forgets how to exhale. And then, slowly, dangerously, the king smiles. Triboulet is forgiven this time, but the message is clear. Everyone feels it, like a spider crawling across the top of your boot, not biting. Not yet, but reminding you that it could. Triboulet's joke was funny. Too funny. Funny in the way that makes people remember things they were trying to forget, that makes power seem smaller. That is not permitted. From now on, his jokes will be monitored. Not officially, of course. Just watched, judged, measured in the glances of nobles and the weight of silences that the routine is flawless. The laughter returns, tentative. At first, then louder, thicker, like paint covering a crack in the wall. The jokes are clever, but careful. He avoids the king's chair by 3 feet, and his eyes never rise above anyone's collarbone. He is still brilliant, but smaller, and that's the cost. In a place where power is fragile and pride is a national currency, even jesters must shrink themselves to fit inside the margins. You once thought humor was freedom? You were wrong. Here, humor is a leash, longer than most, yes, decorated with bells and stitched with velvet, but a leash nonetheless. Triboulet knows this. He always did. But now, everyone else knows too. And laughter, which once felt like rebellion, now sounds a little more like permission. Asterisk, it's been years. The court has changed. New faces, new titles, new rumors with the same old dust on them. The food is warmer now, somehow blander. The chairs creak in a different key, and the throne, well, it still demands laughter, but quieter, safer, curated. Triboulet is gone. No funeral, no monument. Just absence, the kind that tucks itself into corners, that lingers in the shape of unspoken jokes and cautious chuckles. You never saw him leave. One day he was just not there. Like a stain wiped from a table that still smells faintly. Of wine, you ask around. Some say he died of illness. Some say exile. The truth is slipperier than a greased pig on Saint's Day. But something strange happened after he left. The jokes changed. People still laughed. Of course they did. It's expected. It's required. In the same way polished boots and bowed heads are required. But the laughter lost its teeth. The jokes were safe now, shaped like pillows, soft and familiar. The kind that keep you comfortable and never challenge the shape of your seat. No one mocked the king anymore. No, not even playfully. The new jester is young. Neat. Too neat. He juggles. He sings. He somersaults like a man trying to distract from his own presence. His jokes land like spoiled fruit, squishy, harmless, and slightly sour. You smile, but not because you mean it. One night, during a feast, someone tries to tell an old Triboulet joke. It falls flat. Not because it isn't funny, but because it belongs to another time, another court, a different kind of courage. Triboulet's words weren't just sharp, they were real. They carried risk. They smelled faintly of sweat and fear and brilliance, the scent of a man performing. While tiptoeing across a trapdoor, that's gone now. You miss it. You miss him. Not the bows or the bells or the ridiculous dance, but the feeling, the strange, fragile freedom that came with every insult that dared to name the truth out loud. You wonder what became of him? You like to imagine he's somewhere. It's quiet, a village perhaps, far from kings and courtiers, living anonymously, grinning into his soup, still muttering clever things to startled chickens. Maybe he still wears the bells, not because he needs to, but because silence is worse. Or maybe he's writing. You always suspected he kept records. Not journals, no, too confessional, but stories, observations, names disguised with vegetables. The Duke becomes a turnip, Chancellor a shriveled leek. The King, possibly a well-dressed onion with delusions of flavor. One of those stories you heard has survived. A letter, a page, maybe 2, found years later, tucked inside a hollow wall behind a painting of a saint whose eyes are too large to be trusted. It contains a joke, short, sharp. To tell the truth is to step on a rake with a smile, and trust the king enjoys gardening. Laughed when you read it. So did others. Quietly, of course, nervously, as if even now, long after he's gone. Triboulet's words still carry consequence, and maybe they do, because his legacy isn't carved in stone or sung in stained glass. It's in the way people glance over their shoulder before speaking plainly, in the way a silence falls before a laugh begins, in the flicker of thought that says, maybe this is too honest, Maybe it's too funny to be safe. You remember that? And so, now and then, you tell one of his old lines. It's not always aloud. Sometimes just to yourself. Sometimes to a friend with enough wine to forget. Sometimes to no one at all. But when you do, you feel it again. That pulse, that edge. That moment when truth and absurdity shake hands. Someone probably wearing bells says something that should not be said. And everyone laughs. Because laughter is the only rebellion no one can prove. It begins with a woman in the square. She's not young, not old. Somewhere in that medieval middle age where you've buried 3 children, it's outlived a pig, and now wake each morning slightly surprised that your knees still exist. She isn't. Drunk at least, no more than usual. She isn't smiling, and yet she's dancing. No music plays, no festival banner flaps overhead. It's just her in the center of town, flailing her arms like she's swatting invisible bees, stomping. Her feet as if trying to crush a moral dilemma. At first people think she's mad, or possibly French. You watch from a safe distance, behind the cheese stall. Because if madness is airborne, dairy is unlikely to help. A few others chuckle. One man claps politely like she's a play. She is not a play. She is something else. Entirely, she does not stop. An hour passes, then another. She dances through the market, through the churchyard, through someone's small stack of turnips. She knocks over a child. The child apologizes. This is a deeply confusing time for everyone. By sundown, more join her. Not because they want to, that's clear. Their faces do not say joy. They say, I am deeply uncomfortable and cannot make my legs obey gravity. One man tries to sit down. His knees reject the suggestion like they've heard a better idea elsewhere. You, go home, because you are a rational person, and rational people avoid plague-like behavior. You decide that whatever this is, spiritual possession, fermented rye hallucination, or a very enthusiastic form of arthritis, it will certainly resolve by morning. It does not. You wake 2 drums, not festive ones, panic drums. Somewhere, between the sound of joy and a slow, wet collapse, you peek out your shutters. There are now 35 people dancing. Some have tied cloth to their ankles in desperation. Others have collapsed and been trampled, only to rise again with the slow, determined rhythm of laundry being washed by accident. The mayor calls a meeting, a real one. With yelling, several people suggest prayer. One suggests leeches. One man, who recently took a blow to the head from a falling roof tile, suggests turning it into a tourist attraction. He is ignored. Eventually, someone hires a band. The idea, if it deserves to be called that, is simple. If people are dancing, there must be music. Maybe providing rhythm will allow the afflicted to finish whatever unholy choreography this is and go home. The band arrives. A fiddler with 3 teeth. Flutist with only 1 note. A drummer who looks like he's trying to remember why drums were invented. They play. It does not help. In fact, it gets worse. The dancers now seem to lean into the rhythm, not in a celebratory way, more like victims of a very specific and very inconvenient curse. It's like being compelled to polka while grieving. A physician arrives from the city. He is wearing a long robe, a hat that implies deep scholarship, and a facial expression that says, I have no idea what's happening, but I'm going to pretend I do. He declares that the humors are out of balance, that the blood is too warm. Joy has turned into a bodily fluid and must be drained. His solution, bleeding, copious bleeding. He recommends doing it behind the ears, because, and this is a direct quote, the ears are often where the evil collects. No one questions this. It's wearing a hat. You stand in the square. You watch a young woman dance herself into unconsciousness. She is carried aside, revived, and re-enters the crowd with the resigned determination of someone who forgot they'd already paid for another round of this. You feel something tighten in your chest. Not fear. Not yet. More like a cough that forgot how to be a cough. An ache in your foot that pulses to the rhythm of the drums. You look down, your toes move. Just once. Then again you sit. Firmly, a priest steps forward. He He begins reciting scripture in a tone usually reserved for exorcisms and shouting at hens. He throws holy water. It lands on the drummer. The drummer hisses. This is the most progress anyone's made so far. Later that evening, the bishop arrives. He walks into the crowd, holds up his arms, and is immediately knocked over by a baker. The baker apologizes while dancing. The bishop accepts with a beatific smile and a slight jig. By now, the town has taken sides. Some believe it's a punishment from God. Some believe it's a joke sent by the devil. Some believe it's wheat. Others suggest maybe life is just this, absurd sometimes. You, meanwhile, try not to blink too fast in case it starts your knees moving again. By the third day, over 100 people are dancing. Children, elders, even livestock seem jumpier than usual. You see a chicken move in time to the fiddle. You see a mule staring in deep confusion. People have died, not dramatically, just gradually. Like candles that forget they're supposed to burn all the way down. One dancer collapses. Her face hits the ground with a soft, definitive sound. No one checks. There's no time. You ask the baker if he's afraid. He shrugs and says, "It's better than leprosy." You nod. This seems to be the scale of comparison now. Eventually it ends. Not with a cure, but with exhaustion. One by one, the dancers stop, fall, lie still. Some rise again, blinking, unable to recall their own names. Others do not. There is no explanation, none that satisfies anyway. The doctor leaves, the priest leaves, the band leaves. The fiddler takes your best spoon and is never seen again. You are left with silence, and the knowledge that for a few brief, confusing days, your town turned joy into an affliction, a joke without a punchline, a celebration that forgot it was. Supposed to end, your leg still twitches sometimes. Just faintly, you don't dance. But you don't trust yourself near music anymore either. It's the third Sunday after the saint whose name no one can pronounce. The village is preparing for entertainment. Not just any entertainment. Not a harvest dance or a choir of children squeaking through Latin like terrified mice. No, today is for games, and not games of strategy, intellect, or logic. No chess, no riddles. Those are for monks and people with working shoes. Today is for animal sports. You arrive early, clutching a barley biscuit that tastes like regret and sand. The smell in the square is a combination of damp fur, nervous droppings, and anticipation. Several pigs are present. One of them is in a very bad mood and is staring at you like it knows something you forgot to bury. The first event is the goose chase. It's exactly what it sounds like. 1 goose, 20 villagers, no rules. The goal, catch it. A roasted chicken, not the goose. That would be too logical. The goose, for its part, is terrifying. It honks like a trumpet having a seizure and runs with the violent confidence of a noble in debt. You are assigned a corner to cut it off. The goose, naturally, interprets this as a personal challenge and runs directly at you. You run. Everyone runs, eventually. The goose escapes entirely. The prize chicken is given to the miller's son, who never moved at all. He claims to have used goose energy to manipulate the outcome. You consider hitting him with your biscuit. You don't. It's too stale to break on impact. Next up, cat juggling. This event is banned in most counties. For good reason, no one is actually good at it. The cats don't enjoy it. The audience doesn't understand it. And the juggler, who smells like elderflower and sadness, insists the cats are willing participants. They are not. One leaps from his hands, claws exposed like moral outrage, and attaches itself to the brewer's face. There is blood. There is applause. No one knows who won. A pie is awarded, possibly as compensation. Then, ferret racing. Small, twitchy beasts placed into hollow tubes and timed for speed. The ferrets do not run in straight lines. One turns around entirely. Another exits the tube halfway, climbs up a man's leg, and settles into his sleeve. The man accepts this. Your favorite, a gray ferret named Hubert, simply falls asleep. The judge declares this a philosophical statement. He is awarded third place. Someone suggests leech wrestling. They are ignored. Now the main event. Pig, bladder jousting. You line up with everyone else. A wooden stick in one hand, a pig's inflated bladder in the other. It smells like something that should never have been removed from an animal and inflated for sport. But that's the whole point, isn't it? You square off against a neighbor. He's older, with knees that sound like an orchestra of dead crickets. Still, his grip is strong. You both charge. There is no skill to this. You hit. He hits. The bladders squeal. Someone falls. Someone always falls. You win when he slips in a puddle and sits down so hard it echoes through the barrel maker's shop. You help him up. He thanks you. You both limp off to the side to drink something brown and questionable. The final event is the rat pit. It's simple, disturbing, possibly illegal: 2 dogs, 1 pit, several rats. People place bets. You do not. You've reached your limit for the day on moral ambiguity. But you stay and watch because leaving early makes you suspicious. And no one wants to be suspected of rat sympathy. The dogs are let loose. It's over quickly. No one cheers. One man wins a turnip. He raises it like a trophy. It's slightly moldy. Later, during the feast, someone retells the highlights. The goose, the cat attack. It's Hubert the ferret's refusal to participate in reality. Everyone laughs, except the juggler, who is being attended to by the priest with ointments and whispered judgment. You sip from a clay cup that smells like mildew and hope. You don't know what's in it. No one does. It's part of the charm, eh? Child plays with the deflated pig bladder. You hear the squeak and feel something inside your spine unclench just slightly. The baker passes you a scrap of pie. It tastes mostly of onions and flour, but you nod gratefully. Someone begins to sing. Badly, this is not part of the event, but nothing is stopping them. You watch the sky turn orange. You count the remaining ferrets. 3. That seems correct. Your neighbor leans over and says, "Same time next week." You don't answer. You're not sure whether he means the games or the consequences. Asterisk, asterisk. You never meant to audition for a play, and yet here you are in the center of the village square, wearing a burlap robe, a wooden halo, and a facial expression that says, "I was promised turnips, not performance art." The festival of Saint What's-His-Name is upon you. No one agrees on the actual saint. There are competing theories, including a martyred beekeeper, a man who sneezed for 40 days, and a woman who once fed soup to a goat and called it charity. Regardless of the name, there must be a play. There is always a play. This year's script was written by the local scribe, who has never seen a play, but owns many opinions. It's based loosely on a vision someone had after eating mushrooms in the woods. The plot is unclear. The lines rhyme when they shouldn't and don't when they should. There is a bear, or perhaps a metaphor. You are cast as saintly figure number 2, a minor role. Your task is to walk on stage, bless a bucket, and then be struck down by divine confusion. You do not know what that means. Rehearsals are unhelpful. The director is the miller's wife, who directs mostly by squinting and saying, "Do it." Again, but with more holiness. The lead actor, the blacksmith, insists on performing shirtless. No one knows why. His character is a nun. The props include a fish carved from turnip, a scroll made of questionable parchment, a halo constructed from a bent cooking pot, and one actual chicken who refuses to stay in character opening night arrives. The audience consists of villagers, a few dogs, and at least one confused tax collector. The play begins with a trumpet fanfare played on a flute. The flute breaks. Everyone proceeds anyway. You step on stage. Your halo wobbles. You bless the bucket. It leaks. The audience claps. You begin to think this might go well. Then the bear enters. There was supposed to be no bear. The bear was metaphorical. But someone, possibly the same person who suggested leech wrestling last week, thought it would be more immersive to include a real bear borrowed from a traveling menagerie. The bear is unimpressed. It stands in the middle of the stage, sneezes once, and sits down. This is interpreted as an omen. The bishop faints. The children cheer. The chicken escapes. Someone forgets their line. Then another. Improvisation begins. It does not improve matters. At one point, the blacksmith nun attempts a dance meant to symbolize inner conflict and accidentally kicks the leaking bucket into the audience. You are hit in the leg by the turnip. Fish. Backstage, the scribe is sobbing quietly and muttering about artistic betrayal. The audience. They love it. They think it's a comedy. They laugh at the fish. At the chicken's dramatic exit. At the bear's contemplative yawn. One man wipes tears from his eyes and declares it the finest religious satire he's ever seen. You are now a genius of silent despair. After the performance, the miller's wife declares it a resounding success. The script will be rewritten to include the bear. The blacksmith insists his nun role is critically misunderstood. The chicken is promoted to divine messenger and given grain. You limp home. Your halo is dented. Your robe is soaked. Your pride is still somewhere near the bucket, but oddly, you're not entirely unhappy. There is something about it, the chaos, the failure, the absurd applause that stays with you. You did not understand the play. No one did. But somehow, it told the truth better than anything else had all week. And in a world where sermons are shouted, scrolls are censored, and laughter is often punished, telling the truth by accident feels like a victory. You hear they'll be doing another play. Next month, you pretend to groan, but you've already started writing lines for your next bucket blessing. You're summoned to court, not the real one, not the terrifying stone hall where taxes are measured in teeth and justice is interpreted by men who haven't smiled since their own baptisms. Right. No, this is the festival court, part theater, part punishment, and part emotional hazard. You're not in trouble. Probably each year for reasons lost to time and possibly ale, the villagers elect a fake judge, a fake jury, and a real executioner of humiliation. The purpose is simple: to put someone on trial for crimes that are either invented or exaggerated until they resemble truth or, worse, memory. This year the judge is the tanner. He has no legal experience, but does own a very large hat. This appears to be qualification enough. The bailiff is his niece, age 7, armed with a wooden spoon and a suspiciously authoritarian streak. The courtroom is a table. The audience is everyone. Even the sheep are watching. You're seated on the accused bench, which is actually a bucket turned upside down and still faintly smells of fish. Your crime? Repeated acts of suspicious silence. You try to defend yourself. You say, you're just quiet. That you think before you speak. That being silent doesn't make you guilty. The court finds this suspicious. They point out that you were also seen frowning at last week's cabbage stew, that you once stepped on a holy day. Flour, that your socks do not match, and that this may be a sign of spiritual imbalance. The villagers murmur. The murmur turns into chuckling, the chuckling into arguments. A witness is called, the baker. He says you once asked for bread without a crust, which is a known heresy against texture. The judge nods solemnly. The prosecution presents evidence. A poorly drawn map of your emotional territory, including regions marked sarcasm, excessive eyebrow, and turn-up hoarding. You laugh. You shouldn't have. It's interpreted as contempt. Now the stakes rise. They call character witnesses. Your neighbor testifies that you once muttered during a sermon. The priest confirms this. The fact that it was your stomach that made the noise is dismissed as irrelevant. You are handed a turnip. This is a traditional legal gesture. You're not sure what it means, but everyone nods gravely. You hold it like an apology. Finally, you're given a chance to speak. You rise. From the fish bucket, you explain yourself. Your silence is not suspicion. Your unmatched socks are due to flooding. Your dislike of crust is personal, not theological. You attempt humor, make a metaphor about bread, about how the inside is soft, but the outside protects it like people no one understands. But someone claps, then someone else, then laughter. You realize slowly that you've just delivered an unintentional sermon. You sit down, you are exhausted, the turnip falls, The judge confers with the bailiff, who slaps her spoon against the table in a manner that implies justice. You are found entirely guilty, but also promoted to person of peculiar interest. You are wrapped in a ceremonial shawl made of stitched-together dishcloths and asked to lead the parade of shame. The parade. Like most things in the village, makes little sense. You walk through the streets while children sing, improvised. Rhymes about your crimes. He frowned at cabbage. He hoards the peas. He whispers poems to spoiled cheese. At one point, a chicken is placed on your head. You accept this, is now your companion. You name her guilt at the square. A platform awaits. You must perform a dance of penitence. Number. Steps are defined. You do your best. Your knees rebel. The chicken remains impressively composed. You are cheered, then jeered, then handed a mug of something. You drink it. It's mostly vinegar. By nightfall, your sentence is complete. You remove the shawl, thank the chicken, and limp home. Your reputation is now locally mysterious. The baker nods at you with new respect. You're unsure if it's sincere, and yet, there's something to it. To be falsely accused, publicly embarrassed, briefly worshipped, and then forgotten. It's a cycle you've seen before. In religion, in politics, in love, the village court may be a game, but it knows the truth. Guilt is a performance, and sometimes the only thing more powerful than shame is shared laughter at its absurdity. You sleep well that night. For once, you are not silent in your dreams. Asterisk, it begins, as all good disasters do, with a crown made of vegetables. You wake to shouting, not angry shouting, festive, chaotic, deeply untrustworthy shouting. There is singing too, in the same way a goat might attempt an aria, with confidence, its volume, and total disregard for pitch. It's January 1st, or close enough. Calendars are a luxury here, like soap or dignity. What matters is that it's time for the Feast of Fools, a sacred holiday in which the sacred is ridiculed. The foolish reign, and no one quite remembers who came up with the idea. You are quickly informed that you have been chosen as Archbishop of Absurdity. This is not an honor. It's a trap. The title comes with responsibilities, leading the parade, issuing decrees that no one respects, and being dressed by your neighbors in an outfit made entirely from what's left in their gardens. You are now wearing a robe of leaves, a mitre made of cabbage, and socks that smell like onion compromise. The crown, a large, hollowed-out gourd, is placed on your head with ceremony and suppressed laughter. You are to lead the Mass. Yes, a Mass. The one normally conducted by a man who speaks Latin and doesn't laugh at the wrong parts. But today, he is tied to a chair with ribbons and sipping heavily from a cup labeled in vino veritas. His glare implies spiritual disappointment. His posture suggests relief. You enter the church. It has been redecorated. The altar is covered. In straw, chickens roam freely. A sheep stands where the statue of the Virgin Mary usually does, wearing a veil and looking slightly ashamed. Someone has drawn a mustache on the crucifix. You pretend not to notice. You begin the service. The opening hymn is sung backwards. The sermon is improvised from a list of village complaints, including too many Mondays, the turnip tax, and Father Guillaume's refusal to bless ale. The congregation applauds when you declare flatulence to be a form of honest prayer. It is blasphemy. Everyone loves it. There is a dance around the altar involving wooden spoons and a mysterious chanting circle. You participate with the conviction of someone who has fully embraced temporary madness. The sheep joins in. The chicken lays an egg. This is interpreted as divine approval. Outside, the festival continues. Men dress as women. Women dress as saints. Children wear beards made of wool and declare themselves prophets. The blacksmith sings psalms in falsetto while juggling carrots. You pass a nobleman trying to barter for forgiveness using a pie that it is somehow the most honest day of the year, because for once, no one is pretending to be perfect. The masks are off. By putting new ones on, you're not pretending to be better, just ridiculous. And that, strangely, is liberating. At noon, the trial of the animals begins. This year, the accused is a goose. Charges include obnoxious honking, interfering with courtship rituals, and eyeing the priest's lunch. The goose is brought forward. It hisses. This is seen as contempt. The jury, 6 villagers and a scarecrow, deliberates. The goose is found guilty. The sentence: to be kissed by every member of the jury. You are relieved you were not selected. The priest, having partially untied himself, is seen weeping into a radish as archbishop. You are asked to bless the feast. You raise your gourd crown. You pronounce the stew edible. You anoint the bread with a dab of cider. You declare the pickled herring questionable but brave. Cheers erupt. Someone throws a turnip. It misses. Barely. You sit and eat beside your neighbors. You're smeared in leek. You are tired. You're content. Then comes the reversal ceremony. The fool must surrender their crown. The world must return to order. You are stripped of your vegetable garments. Your mitre wilts. Your authority evaporates like the last warmth of a dying fire. The priest retakes the altar. Sheep is ushered out, though not before giving the Virgin Mary one last sympathetic glance. The laughter dims. The hats come off. The wine runs out. And just like that, it's over. You walk home, still smelling faintly of fermented vegetables. Now the cabbage crown is under your arm. You're not sure why you kept it. Maybe as proof. Maybe as a souvenir. Maybe because it reminds you that for one brief, ridiculous day, the world let go of its rules and danced in the mud. You lie down. The bells are silent now. The sheep is back in the pasture. The chicken is still missing. You think about how somehow the only day that ever felt sane was the one where everyone agreed to go mad. You're not sure how the invitation arrived? Maybe it was meant for someone else. Someone cleaner. Someone whose shoes match and don't squish when walked upon. But here you are, standing in front of a manor the size of your entire village, clutching a wax-sealed scroll and trying not to breathe too heavily in case you accidentally dislodge something valuable from your own body. You have been invited to a noble feast. At first, it sounds like a reward. It is not. It is a test, and you will fail it slowly and with parsley in your teeth. The doorman looks you up and down like you're a riddle written in manure. Then he waves you in, not out of courtesy, but because he wants the sight of you. To become someone else's problem, the entry hall is too large. It echoes with the ghost of every misstep you're about to make. Tapestries taller than trees line the walls, each depicting a noble battle or a saint glaring disapprovingly at the concept of joy. The carpet smells expensive. The ceiling smells like beeswax, roasted fowl, and ambition. You are offered wine. It is not wine. It is something called verjuice, which is made from unripe grapes and poor decisions. You nod. You sip. You regret. A servant appears with a basin. You think it's soup? You reach for a spoon. He recoils, horrified. It is for washing hands. You laugh to cover your mistake. No one else laughs. Yes. The error hangs in the air like a wet sock in a confessional. The feast begins. It is not one table. It is 3.1 for the nobles, 1 for the barely acceptable guests and 1 for musicians who are forbidden from chewing in rhythm. You sit on a bench so polished it nearly ejects you. You are flanked by a merchant's wife who smells like cinnamon anxiety, and a minor clerk who insists on reciting Latin proverbs after every swallow. A platter arrives. It contains something unidentifiable, possibly fish, possibly regret. Topped with gold leaf and the kind of sauce that whispers you can't afford this into your pores, you try to eat politely. You fail. You've never had to pretend your bread is ornamental before. Across the room, the nobles laugh, loudly, the kind of laugh that says, "We're not actually amused, but we do own land." One of them is balancing a quail on a spoon and daring others to do the same. Someone loses. Quail is not amused. Next comes entremet. Not food, but edible sculpture, a knight carved from lard. A dragon made of sugared dough, belching raisins. A castle constructed entirely from soft cheese. You are encouraged to applaud. You do, the knight collapses. The dragon falls over and lands on the cheese castle. A servant pretends this was intentional. The audience pretends to believe him. Cheese accepts its fate. Between courses, a jester performs. He is not Triboulet. He is younger, louder, and significantly more acrobatic. He throws eggs at the ceiling. One hits a chandelier. You flinch. Everyone else applauds. You begin to suspect you are the only one here not wearing a mask metaphorically, if not literally. Then, more food. Roasted peacock served with its own feathers, swan and almond milk. A pie that when sliced releases live sparrows. You do? Not know where the sparrows were stored. Do not ask. You are served something small and gray. It jiggles slightly. You eat it. It fights back. The clerk beside you declares fiat voluntas, tua, and downs his in one gulp. You stop asking questions after that. By the 5th course, your stomach is confused and your soul is damp. You've eaten 12 things and tasted 3. You've nodded 37 times. You've used the wrong spoon for everything, and no one has corrected you. This is worse than being mocked. At the end of the table, someone begins a toast. It is long. It references genealogies, battles, and a joke. No one understands, but everyone pretends to. You raise your cup at the wrong time, and are now committed to a nodding cycle that will last another full minute. Dessert arrives. It is a pear. It's not a normal pear. This one is poached, gilded, and served on a miniature throne. It wobbles regally. As you approach it with your fork, the fork breaks. You use your fingers. The pear stares into your soul and forgives nothing. As the evening ends, you are given a token of thanks. A linen napkin embroidered with your name spelled incorrectly. You clutch it like a trophy. You are escorted out gently, the way one might remove a goat from a wedding. Outside, the air is cold and honest. You breathe. You survived. You are deeply full, slightly humiliated, and inexplicably proud of not choking. On a gilded raisin, you walk home slowly. You pass your own door. You keep walking. The night is yours again, and for the first time in hours. Your spoon makes sense. Asterisk, you are handed a mask. It's made of stiffened linen. Painted with cheap gold leaf and an expression of permanent amusement, the kind of smile that says, "Yes, of course I understand everything," while quietly screaming into the void. You were told to wear it. You were not told why. Tonight is the Masques, not a masquerade. That's what they have in stories. Those are romantic, mysterious, full of stolen glances and riddles whispered behind columns. This is not that. This is what happens when the rich decide to perform feelings they don't feel with music. It's choreography and enough perfume to confuse a bloodhound. The theme is virtue and vice in harmonious debate. No one knows what that means. There is a script. No one intends to follow it. There is a dance. Everyone intends to survive it. You are dressed in silk. It itches. Your borrowed costume belongs to a character named Modesty, which seems optimistic. Given that your sleeves alone could shelter a family of 5, you are instructed to speak only in couplets. You forget this immediately. You are corrected loudly. The hall is candlelit, smoky with incense, and the warm panic of too many people pretending they belong. There is a stage, but no one uses it. Instead, the performance happens everywhere, in corners and stairwells. Beneath tables, inside fountains, you suspect half the cast is lost. One performer appears to be asleep. Another is clearly just a guest who refused to leave. Your role? To be seduced by temptation, a character played by the steward's third cousin, who smells faintly of cloves and declarations. He appears from behind a curtain, strikes a pose, and begins to speak in iambic pentameter that only occasionally rhymes. His mask is red, his cape is purple, and his confidence is a public menace. You respond with a verse you barely remember. It involves a metaphor about geese and restraint. It is received with confused applause. A scene unfolds. Somewhere behind you, charity and gluttony are sword-fighting with ladles. Piety is crying into a pie. Deceit is performing card tricks to no audience. You are kissed on the hand by a stranger who claims to be justice. He is holding a fish. This is not in the script. You flee to the garden. Outside, The night is less confusing. The mask slips. You breathe through silk. You lean against a hedge and try to remember how words work without rhyme. Then, envy finds you. She is played by someone you met once, years ago, who remembered your name when you didn't remember theirs. Her costume is all green lace and quiet fury. She delivers a monologue about being overlooked, underfed, and always second. It's clearly improvised. It's disturbingly good. You applaud. Shh. The host appears, wearing a lion mask and no shirt. He roars theatrically and announces that the ball of judgment must begin. You return indoors. Now the guests are the performers. Each person is judged by the group and assigned their true nature, not based on fact, but on popularity and wine. It is terrifying. You are declared melancholy with aspiration. You nod, as if this is not a personal attack. The baker is crowned libidinous abundance. The priest is willful forgetfulness. A goat is declared hope. Everyone cheers. The host removes his lion mask and falls into a vat of wine. This is interpreted as spiritual release. You are beginning to understand that interpretation is doing most of the work tonight. The mask ends, not with a bow, but with confusion. People drift apart. The candles burn down. The music falters. You are handed a pear wrapped in velvet and told to keep it as a memory. You don't ask why. You walk home at dawn. The mask is still in your pocket. You consider throwing it away. You don't. Because something about it, the painted smile, the false performance, the awkward dance through absurd rituals, feels familiar. Feasting is one kind of lie. Masks are another. But both reveal more than they hide. And when you wore the mask, when you pretended to be someone you weren't, you noticed that others did too. And in that tangle of falseness, you felt something. Strangely honest. You were seen. Even if no one knew it was you. You wake two horns, not metaphorical ones, actual horns. Blown with the urgency of someone who has never considered that noise can be a weapon. It's barely dawn. The sky is still drunk on night. Air smells like dew, horses, and impending accident. You've been invited on a hunt. You say invited, but really it was a command disguised as an opportunity. A noblewoman smiled at you across a feast and said, "You must come with us tomorrow. It'll be exhilarating." Her voice said exhilarating, but her eyes said blood. You are handed a horse. It is tall, judgmental, and has a name longer than your family history. Climb aboard with the grace of a sack of onions trying to solve a ladder. Your boots slip. Your dignity dismounts. The stable boy winces on your behalf. Around you, nobles are already trotting in small, controlled circles. Elegant, effortless, their hair doesn't move. Their hounds are coordinated. You look down at your own borrowed hound, which appears to be a half-blind mutt named Parsnip. The horns blow again. The chase begins. You do not know what you are chasing. Someone says stag. Someone else says boar. One man just shouts, "Glory," and gallops into a hedge. Your horse moves like it has places to be and doubts about your intentions. You duck a branch. You don't duck another. Leaves are now in your collar, your mouth, and one eye. A noble beside you shouts, "Onward, brave knight." You're not. A knight. He's not talking to you. He's yelling at a squirrel. Squirrel flees. You briefly consider joining it. Suddenly the group halts. The dogs have found something. It is a hedgehog. It curls up. The hounds circle it with great confusion. One noble cheers. Another starts composing a poem. You dismount with extreme care and pretend to be deeply invested in the hedgehog's philosophical meaning. The hunt continues. Or rather, splinters. You end up in a clearing with 3 nobles, 2 dogs, and what may be a goat. No one seems sure whose goat it is. For what? You're unclear. You never saw a stag. You never heard a shot. But you were handed a cup of something warm and alarmingly red and told you rode with spirit. You smile, you drink, you hope it's wine. Later that week, the mock battle. It's called a tournament. But it's less about competition and more about elaborate bruising performed for admiration. You are placed in the gentleman's melee, which implies manners. There are none. Your armor is borrowed. You are handed a wooden sword that feels heavier than guilt. You try to lift it. Your shoulder disagrees. Your opponent is a minor noble with a reputation. For enthusiasm, he charges before the horn is blown. You block with your face. The crowd cheers. Someone places a bet on your survival. The odds are not in your favor. You swing, he ducks, you spin, your helmet spins. Aptly. You are now seeing sideways through a slit designed by someone who hated peripheral vision. Eventually, the fight ends, not with victory, but with collapse. You both lie in the dust, panting like overworked bellows. Squire brings water. You drink, you choke. It's not water, it's cider. Everything blurs. The crowd loves it. You are helped up, handed a ribbon, and declared most gallant loser. You pin the ribbon to your sleeve and try not to cry. That evening, over a painfully elaborate stew, someone toasts to the bravery of the guests. You raise your cup. Your wrist cramps. Your bruises cheer in protest. You wonder if the rich ever feel fear, or if they've simply trained themselves to enjoy danger, as long as it's seasonal and comes with applause, and maybe, just maybe, this is how they remind themselves they are alive, by staging chaos and surviving it with grace. Or at least, with a squire and a change of clothing, you return to your room. You remove the armor. You count your bruises. You whisper their names like saints. This one is doubt. This one is regret. This one is still throbbing. You lie in bed, you stare at the ceiling, and you decide that tomorrow, if invited again, you will say yes. Because sometimes being out of place is better than never leaving it. You are told to stand still, not metaphorically, not as part of some grand moral lesson about patience or obedience. Literally, just stand still. For art, tonight's entertainment is a tableau vivant, the living picture, a noble obsession wherein people are arranged like statues to portray grand scenes from scripture, myth, or the imagination of someone with too much money and not enough hobbies. You were not asked. You were assigned. Your role is despairing monk number 3, to be posed beside hopeful virgin number 2 and horse unconvinced. The horse is, in fact, a man wearing a painted paper match head and a tail made of frayed curtain rope. He is deeply committed to the role. You try not to make eye contact. The artist in charge is a Florentine who once painted a mural for someone famous, or so he claims. He waves his arms a great deal. He uses the word divine more than anyone really needs to. He insists on a motive, rigidity, which seems to mean suffering and absolute silence. You are draped in a robe made of real monk cloth, which mostly smells like goat and keeps slipping off your left shoulder. You are not allowed to fix it. That would break the mood. The scene is called The Repentance of Humanity at the Cliff of Infinite Yearning. No one knows what it means, but there's a cliff. It's made of stacked bread. A few pigeons try to eat it. This is discouraged, unsuccessfully. You pose and you wait and wait. The audience. Nobles and their fancier cousins strolls by slowly murmuring approval. You were meant to look tormented but passive. You attempt this. End up looking hungry and cold. The artist applauds your commitment to fragility. Someone coughs. You flinch. You are glared at by a horse, unconvinced. His tail droops in judgment. Behind you, a lute is played softly. The music is gentle, almost sweet. It begins to lull you. You shift your weight, barely a toe's worth of movement. The bread cliff wobbles. The artist gasps as though struck. In the heart, the pigeons scatter in moral protest. You resume your position. Your foot begins to cramp. 10 minutes past 20. Your eyes water from holding still. Your shoulder itches with the subtle, insistent betrayal of wool. The audience claps politely, like they're encouraging a particularly obedient fern. You begin to contemplate mortality, not your own. The horses. You wonder what he did to deserve this. Eventually, the scene ends. Not with a curtain, but with the artist yelling, "Release." Like a man banishing demons. You stumble from your pedestal. Your left leg forgets how to leg. The robe falls again. No one helps. You are handed a boiled plum. This is your payment. The next act is a private play, held in the drawing room for an audience of 6. You are asked to assist, not as an actor, as a background element. You are to hold a candlestick, stand beside the tapestry, and look like someone who might have opinions about metaphysics. You agree? It's better than despairing on a bread cliff. The play is short, confusing, and loudly whispered. It involves a widow, a mirror, and a snake that may represent grief or inheritance. You're not sure? Halfway through, the snake breaks. Someone tapes it back together. The actors improvise a death scene for it. Everyone claps. You almost drop your candlestick from trying not to laugh. The evening continues with recitations, some in French, some in Latin, some in a dialect invented by the host for emotional clarity. No one understands. Everyone pretends. 2. You are offered wine. You decline, they insist. You accept. Tableau of silence. Everyone participates. Everyone, no talking. No movement, just presence. It is terrifying. You sit. Instead, you remember the pigeon that stole a piece of bread from the cliff and escaped into the night with what looked like purpose. The tableau lasts 11 minutes. You survive all of them. Afterward, everyone praises the depth of meaning. A nobleman weeps quietly into his embroidered sleeve. A servant takes notes, possibly for blackmail. You leave in the dark. No applause, no curtain. It's just the soft crunch of gravel underfoot and the sensation that you have spent an entire evening pretending to be part of something important while slowly becoming an immobile potato. And yet, it's not nothing. In the stillness, you notice things, flickers of thought. Shifts in breath, the subtle weight of your own expression being studied by others. In pretending, you remembered you exist. You go home. You sit in your own chair. And for a moment, just one, you remain perfectly still. It's late, not late like bedtime. Late like the candles have melted into pools of wax. The shape of forgotten promises, and the music has grown soft. Like someone singing to themselves just to keep the dark from getting ideas. The feast is long over. The plays have ended. The nobility have removed their performance masks. Not the painted ones, but the ones worn all day in the shape of smiles, superiority, and the careful art of speaking without ever saying anything. Now it is time for the games, not for prizes, not for performance, just for something else. You don't know what, neither do they. You're led into a smaller room, stone walls, heavy drapes, fireplace crackling like it's remembering old scandals. You are offered a seat on a cushion that was once stuffed with swan feathers and now seems to contain dust, regret, and one sharp thing you dare not identify. The nobles sit around you, looser now, slouched stockings askew. One is still wearing a ruffled collar, but it's wilted like a dandelion giving up. The jester not performing now is in the corner with wine-stained lips and eyes. Too tired to be funny, they begin the game of truths. You must answer. That is the rule. No lying, no silence. Only honesty, given gently or torn like bandages. The first question is for someone else. A countess. What did you love and lose? She says, my name. Had to marry a new one. Everyone nods. Then, the turn passes. The questions shift like shadows, simple ones made difficult by the presence of listeners. What do you fear in silence? When did you pretend to laugh? What did you bury, and where? Eventually, they look at you. Your question, what would you steal if no one could see you? You answer slowly, not gold, not jewels, not secrets. You'd steal a quiet room, a locked door, and the right to never explain yourself again. Room nods. The jester sighs as if in agreement. The wine is passed around again, stronger now, redder, like it has opinions. Next comes the game of shadows. Everyone takes a candle. You're told to close your eyes. When the candle is blown out, someone must tell a story they've never said aloud. If they lie, the room will know. Somehow, the room always knows. The candle goes out. A baron speaks. I once paid a man to lose a duel to me. He didn't. I lost. I never forgave him for being honest. Another voice, trembling. I kissed a girl during a plague year, knowing I was ill. She never caught it. I did. Laughter soft and unkind follows. Not at her, but at fate. You do. Not speak, not yet. Your candle goes out, your shadow seems too long to explain. Then someone begins the confession game, not religious. Not formal, just one sentence. One truth. No more the noblewoman who invited you to the hunt says, I cried in my hawk's feathers once, so no one would see. The blacksmith's cousin, now only half in costume, says, I hate music, but I dance to feel forgiven. Then silence. The kind that doesn't press, but listens. You say, I once pretended to be asleep so I wouldn't have to say goodbye. Someone says, that's not a sin. You say, it felt like one. And no one disagrees. The fire dims. The wine runs. Out. The room grows quieter, not because there's nothing left to say, but because the most important things have already been said, and no one wants to ruin the silence they made together. One by one, they drift away, a yawn, a bowed head, a door opened carefully to avoid waking regret. You sit for a while longer. The jester stands, stumbles, and places his mask in your lap. He says nothing. You nod. That seems fair. You walk home under a moon that seems to be looking. The other way, the air is cold. Honest. No games here. But you carry something with you. Not shame, not pride. Just the weight of being seen for a moment in a room where no one laughed unless they meant it. You pass the manor's gate. You stop. You look back once. The fire is out. The night is quiet. But for a few strange, flickering hours, the performance stopped, and what replaced it was still strange, but not false. And now as you close your door behind you, you know this much. Even the rich, and the costumed, even the crowned, they too are tired, scared, unsure, and clumsy in the dark. Just like you. Asterisk, the fire has gone out. The halls are silent. And the candles that once flickered with mischief have melted down to stubs no longer needed. You've walked through festivals and feasts, through laughter sharp as knives and games strange enough to feel real. You've danced when you weren't. Sure, why? You've stood still when everyone was watching. You've worn masks and removed them, sometimes both at once. And now, it's over. The noise is behind you. The strange, jangling joy of medieval fun, part performance, part survival, has faded into the soft hush of night. What remains is the stillness, not empty, but full in its own way, like a table after a feast, like silence after a very long song. Thank you for staying to the end, for listening, for wandering, for remembering a time that was never simple, but was always strange. If you're still awake, the next story will wait for you. And now, as you lie there, the loop will wait once more for you.